What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. We have a very interesting Thursday night football game to recap off the top here before we get to the full Week 2 preview show with Justin Boone in just a moment. Let's talk through Packers 27, Commanders 18. Like I said, interesting game to talk through. Unfortunately, kind of sandwiched beginning and end by two what look like significant injuries that we will get into here in just a second. As always, we will talk through the winning football team here as we get to Thursday night takeaways, and that is going to bring us to the Green Bay Packers. Whoo boy, Packers look like a pretty damn good team. I actually bring this up in the preview with Justin Boone a couple of times. I wrote this article on the Detroit Lions offense today. By the way, we're reading again in 2025. That's a thing we're doing here. So I hope you guys check it out, please. But anyways, yeah. So I wrote this article on the Detroit Lions offense, and just a lot of the kind of warning signs that we got from them in Week 1. At the same time, I bring it up in the article over and over again that I don't really want to overreact too much to the results of Week 1 for the Lions, because I kind of think after watching that game back on film and charting some of the receivers that the Packers just might have the best defense in the league this season. And they certainly felt like that unit once again here on Thursday night. Let's keep in mind here, maybe the Packers fall off, but should be noted that the two teams that they've just mowed down here in the first 2 weeks of the season are the two teams that competed in the divisional round of the NFC playoffs last year. Two teams that were top 5 in basically every relevant offensive efficiency metric. And I think that both the Lions and the Commanders will take a step back on offense this year. I think that's also plain. But that being said, the Packers have just obliterated them in the first 2 weeks here, specifically in this game tonight. Like 27-18, this game was kind of stuck at 17-3 for a long time before the Packers put 10 more points on, and the Commanders kind of cleaned it up with a late Deebo Samuel touchdown. But this Packers defense was on it all night long. They had the Commanders number. We'll get into them in just a second here on that side of the ball. But I do think my biggest takeaway here is that obviously the addition of Micah Parsons, who I think it's funny, like he looks fantastic and also still does look a little stiff. He's like working himself back into shape. He didn't have a real training camp. He's also maybe sort of dealing with a back injury legitimately. It's crazy to kind of think what is he going to look like once he's fully integrated in this defense and really takes off, because he's already such a game-changing force in addition to just like everybody else getting a little bit better. Lucas Van Ness blows up another play in the backfield. The secondary, I know the secondary is clearly and obviously like squatting on guys and squatting on routes in the backfield, in the back end there in the secondary. That's definitely happening because they know that the front four can get home at this point. They know they have the horses on the defensive line to put pressure on the passer. But they're doing it successfully, and they're really tight and sticky in coverage. The zone coverage stuff from Jeff Hafley on the back end is really, really, really good. They're doing so much to disguise things. They're confused. It's a really difficult defense to play against. So they're definitely one of these units that coming into the season, I'm sure we did not discuss them as like a, hey, you don't play guys against this defense. And obviously there's a certain level of player that you're just going to play no matter what. Like would anybody realistically have benched Jaden Daniels tonight? I mean, he still gave you a relatively acceptable fantasy performance here, all things considered. That being said, like it could have been a lot better. And this just might be one of those units that really tanks your fantasy players throughout the course of the season. I think that is legitimately possible just based on what we've seen so far, what we saw from them last year, how high I am on Hafley, and obviously what Parsons does for everybody here. But Packers offense-wise, Josh Jacobs is Josh Jacobs. He's the workhorse of this backfield, of course. No shock there. He's going to continue, even if he's not like ripping off long runs, right? Long run of 10 yards, 3.7 yards per carry, doesn't matter. He's just success rate machine, moves the chains. He's going to get 20 plus touches on every given week. The passing game, of course, is interesting. Like I mentioned, serious injury in this game to start it off. Jaden Reed Man, Jaden Reed, awesome play, catches a touchdown pass on a 35-plus yard throw from Jordan Love. It's called back because of a holding play. And then also Jaden Reed lands on what looks like his shoulder, collarbone. I don't want to speculate, of course. I don't know, but that looked like a significant injury. He was in a lot of pain right away. He left the game without recording another stat and was, again, he ends up, I think, running like 2 routes in this game because of that. So that was very early on in the game. That, of course, did open up things for other players in the passing game, but probably not the guys that you would expect in the receiving room. But at tight end, Tucker Kraft, 6 catches, 124 yards on 7 targets and a touchdown. Man, I mean, this was like Tucker Kraft's coming out party, okay? Tucker Kraft, according to this tweet we've got up here right now, Tucker Kraft's 124 yards tonight are the most by Packers tight end since Richard Rodgers. Remember Richard Rodgers? Totaled 146 in the 2015 Hail Mary game. Yeah, so big throwback call to Richard Rodgers there, but Tucker Kraft is a badass. I was so glad that he had this game on Thursday Night Football because he felt like the one player we could not shut the hell up about on this podcast all offseason. So Tucker Kraft, again, does he have the volume of the Trey McBride? Does he even have the volume of a Tyler Warren? No, but he is right off of those guys in terms of the elite tight ends in fantasy football. I'm not the first one to make this comp. It is very George Kittle-esque because not only is he, let's bring that route tree back up, boys, actually, because it makes a great point here, because not only is he a guy that he led all tight ends with 9.6 yards after a catch per reception last season. Now it's like, oh, he's added another club to the bag here because he's also a great vertical receiver in this game. Like you see the routes that we're showing here on YouTube if you're watching with us. So many downfield concepts. They get him loose like off play action, like leak routes and stuff like that. But the verticality of his game, the one up the seam, is just like, yeah, that's badass number 1 tight end type stuff. And Tucker Kraft is indeed a badass and somebody that should be locked into. Unless for some reason you've got a build where you have like Trey McBride and Tyler Warren or Brock Bowers or whatever, and you also somehow Tucker Kraft, you got him there too. You might want to flex him. I don't know, but one way or another, Tucker Kraft should be locked in as an every week starter in fantasy football at the tight end position. Felt like that was coming in the offseason. That's why we couldn't shut the hell up about him. That's why he's going to play for your fantasy team every single week. Tucker Kraft is awesome. He's going to give you a 4 for 30 game at some point probably. Deal with it because he's also got this kind of upside. You've seen it now expressed itself. In the receiver room, once again, Romeo Doubs leads the way in snaps, everything that you would expect. With Jaden Reed out, though, it did not open up more room for Matthew Golden, who comes out of this with a goose egg in the receiving department. 2 targets. Jordan Love kind of missed him on what could have been a deep touchdown very early on in the game. But he does get 2 carries for 15 yards. So, cool. Savion Williams, fellow rookie receiver, also got 2 carries for 24 yards. So Packers, even without Jaden Reed, are still doing that wide receiver rush attempt stuff. But not heard from as a receiver. It was actually Dontavian Wicks, second on the team in targets, behind Tucker Kraft. Yeah, that's right. Dontavian Wicks. I know you guys saw him on the hands team too. Yeah, that's right. Mr. Can't Catch the Football on the hands team on the onside kick. That's right. Listen, I was vocal about this in the offseason that Dontavian Wicks in year 2 took a step back, not just in the hands department. It wasn't just that he couldn't catch the football and couldn't win contested catches. I think it also got into his head, and he wasn't running the cleanest routes and separating, in my opinion, at the level that he was as a rookie. That being said, was talking about this with some folks tonight. Guys that clear 70% success rate versus man coverage and reception perception as rookies, like, we're going to keep the candle lit for a player like that until the league tells us, no, thank you, they're done, it's over. This is a guy that the league has not said that. His team, Dontavian Wicks' organization, is playing him over Matthew Golden. And Dontavian Wicks is responding. He made multiple really clean catches. He's not, we're not talking about some big fan. I'm not telling you go pick up Dontavian Wicks, your fantasy team. Okay, let's get that straight. But it was 4 for 44. But he is blocking Matthew Golden. And until that changes, Matthew Golden is not a guy you could play in fantasy. You cannot consider playing him with the amount of routes he's running right now. I liked him as a 9th round pick in drafts this summer, kind of in that range. But he's not playable right now. That's not to say that come November, December, when we used to be patient for rookies into their third season. Now we want it right away. There's a chance that Golden, is a back half of his rookie season, which is what we have now come to more so expect, or should expect more so from these first round rookies. So it's not totally over for Golden this season, but you can't play him right now. And he might be a tough guy to hold through the bye week. So do your best to keep him around because he's a talented player on an offense that is good. So try to hold him, but if you can't, it is what it is. You might end up missing out on him, and that happens all the time with these rookies. So that's the take on the Packers. Defense is great. The offense is still a little bit inconsistent at times, but very explosive and has so many good young receivers that even once Reed goes out and Golden's not doing anything, they can still throw Romeo Doubs at you. They can still throw Dante Mix, and obviously Tucker Kraft is the man in the passing game. On the Commanders side of things, oh boy, if you were like I was, let's just say suspicious about this skill position group that the Commanders have put around Jaden Daniels. If you were suspicious about that this summer, this is the exact type of game that would give you pause, that would give you reason for concern. And it's again, I know this is a great defense. I said it off the top. I don't want to over-index on that result, but this is the type of game where your number one receiver is a pure vertical guy that you stick on one side of the field and don't really target him in the short to intermediate area. And he's also coming off an offseason where, and I'm talking about Terry McLaurin here, obviously, where he was not participating in camp. It dragged out till the very end. I pointed this out multiple times. Look back at how CeeDee Lamb started last season. This is a guy that typically averages like 90 yards per game. He was at like 75 in the first 5 weeks of last season. Him and Dak Prescott even talked about how it took a little bit for them to get going. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is an even more dramatic example of a guy that was the most, if one of the 2 or 3 most efficient receivers in football in 2023. He gets off to a painfully slow start last year. That could very well be happening with Terry McLaurin right now, who comes out of this game with 5 catches for 48 yards. Not great. Okay, after a slow game in week 1. Obviously, Jaden Daniels missed him on a long touchdown in week 1, but it's just right now the Terry McLaurin stuff is very on my radar. Elsewhere, Deebo Samuel has he's doing Deebo Samuel stuff. I think people are overreacting to. I think people were overreacting to Deebo Samuel's week 1 performance. I know he gets the touchdown here, but he comes away. It's a literally 0.6 air yards per target in this game. That's the Deebo Samuel role at this point. It's screens, it's underneath stuff, it's yards after the catch, and he did average 8 yards after the catch per reception in this game, but you better average 8 yards per reception, yards after catch per reception if you're catching passes around the line of scrimmage. So, you can start Deebo in fantasy. He's definitely a cleaner projection right now than Terry, just because like that downfield stuff isn't really working, especially against good defenses, especially like defenses like the Packers that can put heat on the passer. That just is what it is right now. Like Terry McLaurin was a risky draft pick because he didn't have an offseason, and you're seeing that risk right now. I'm hoping that changes here very soon, but we're throwing to Noah Brown in contested situations. We're still relying on Zach Ertz. Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, like Jalen Lane and Deebo Samuel on the same team, you're asking for trouble. Those guys are like kind of the same player, but one is built like a bowling ball and one is like a smaller elusive player, but you kind of want to use them in the same ways. I know it's Cliff Kingsbury. It's very much like when he had Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch on the same team in Arizona a few times. Not ideal. Lastly, the final thing we got to hit on here is the backfield for the Commanders. Austin Eckler, Hate to see this. Just brutal. Late in the game, think about like maybe 5 or so minutes left. Austin Eckler, non-contact injury, had to be helped off the field, carted to the locker room. The team immediately announced it was an Achilles injury. That's what it looked like. That was the worst fear when you saw it. Just sucks. Austin obviously used to host the show as well alongside me. We did Eckler's Edge. He's a great guy and just has been a really good player in this league for a long time. I was going to come on to this show and kind of actually pop off on a rant about people, I talk about like the life cycle of a fantasy running back, where, and I've said this before on the show, I've said it to Austin, you go from being the guy that like, oh, we got to get this guy on the field. We got to get this guy on the field. We got to get this guy on the field. Throw that other guy out, even though like a couple years ago we were drafting that guy in the first round of fantasy drafts or whatever. Get that guy out of here. We don't care anymore. We got to see the new guy. And Austin is definitely, again, at the beginning of this game, go find the tweets. They're out there about people saying that like, oh, we got to get Eckler out here. Another carry for Eckler. Get Bill on the field. And I was going to pop off on a whole rant about that. Well, guess what, Bill Bros? Like you're going to get your wish now because Eckler is going to miss the rest of the season based on what it looked like on Thursday night. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. Like I've seen some nice stuff from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I'm not like he's a 7th round rookie. This is what I'm talking about. This team is like it's those guys in the receiver room we just talked about and a 7th round rookie running back. Obviously, it's. I guess stock up for Bill in fantasy, but I hate this stuff. Like, just have a little respect for the players. Like, come on, another carry for Eckler? Yeah, good, reliable veteran back on the team. Give me a freaking break. Like, it's just, I don't know. But even Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, this was apparent at the end of the game, Jerry McNichols might play on passing downs ahead of him. So we have to see about this JCM stuff. I'm sure he's going to be the talk. He's been the talk of fantasy Twitter. That's been on my radar because, like, honestly, I'm just thinking about it. I don't want people to be pissed at old Bill because they took him too high in their draft. We just got to see what his role is going to be like. He's not like a 1st round rookie, not a second. He's a 7th rounder. He's a 7th round rookie. We'll see what the team wants to do in terms of their trust for him, but obviously much more opportunity as just an early down rusher. Now that Austin Eckler again looks like he will miss the rest of the season. Maybe we even see some Chris Rodriguez too. I don't know. I'm just trying to temper the JCM stuff, but the team certainly needs some more pop. But 5-yard long run for Bill in this game. It's not as if like, oh my God, he was ripping off heaters all night. So I think the Commanders' offense, I've got my concerns about them reaching the type of ceiling that maybe other people forecasted for them this year. But we shall see. Don't want to overreact too much to a loss to the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay because that defense very well might be elite. But it's certainly more instructive than whatever they did against the Giants in week 1.